I cannot tell you how many takes and retakes I've done on this next topic as we head into today's show. Originally on Thursday, I had a topic where I was discussing the fact that it sounded like JJ Redick was going to be the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. And then it came out as we were about to hit the air on Thursday that JJ Redick was not going to be the head coach of the Lakers, that Dan Hurley had, potentially been in position to take that job. He was meeting with the Lakers brass. He potentially was looking to move on from UConn, which I've said. And listen, even though UConn is obviously back to back national champions, there is a chance that they could repeat. But as we know, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to try to do it this year in the National Football League. No matter how good you are, it's going to be very hard to do. And, Dan Irwin's probably done everything he could do at UConn outside of that repeat. And it's very hard, in my opinion, to be a college coach. We've seen college football coaches, move to the NFL. We've also seen college head coaches like Chip Kelly prefer to take an offensive coordinator position at Ohio State as opposed to stay at UCLA. And it's not just because of the Big Ten and SEC, basically taking out the Big 12 and the Pac 12 and becoming these huge two conferences. It's really because of the fact that in college now, because of NIL, you are recruiting to keep your own players. It is a 365-day recruiting job because the more money you throw at a player, that's really all they want. And if some of these lower level schools could get a 3 or 4 star athlete, even though they're not going to be on that stage, if they're getting paid more and they get more opportunities, maybe to start, as opposed to being a backup at a better school, they're probably going to take that opportunity. So I think being a college coach is actually a lot harder in this day and age, especially with social media and recruitment and NIL and money, than it is being a professional coach. But the Los Angeles Lakers, if you think about this logically, ever since 2010, when they last won that NBA championship, the Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol Meta World Peace team that knocked off the Boston Celtics team in 7 games, outside of one season, the Lakers have been a dumpster fire. They've had Mike Brown ever since Phil Jackson left. They've had Mike Brown, they've had Byron Scott, they've had Luke Walton, they've had Frank Vogel, who I actually liked out of all the coaches. They had Darvin Ham, who reportedly is now back in Milwaukee as Doc Rivers' top assistant. And now they're going to go on their new coach. And as I said, ever since 2010, even Kobe Bryant's last years, even his last year, which was a farewell retirement tour, the Lakers were terrible. They were irrelevant. They were irrelevant when they had Lonzo Ball and Kyle Kuzma and Brandon Ingram and all of those young kids. They were irrelevant when LeBron first came to town, and they only became relevant, when they got Anthony Davis. And you can make an argument that if the NBA bubble didn't exist, maybe the Lakers don't even have a championship in this LeBron era, though they were the best team during that 2019-2020 season. And I thought they would probably win the championship, though if they met the Clippers, who had their number that season, who knows? The fact of the matter is that was the Lakers' one chance to win a championship. And they got it. They did it. You can take no credit away from them. But outside of last year, we're against Denver. They played Denver, maybe the closest anybody ever has outside of Minnesota during the past 2 seasons. LeBron and AD was clearly not enough. The Lakers clearly need a third star, which is hard to get in today's NBA with the salary cap restrictions, including, needing a bench. And I say the Lakers need a third star as opposed to Denver or, some of these other teams because the Lakers are old. Anthony Davis was healthy this year. LeBron was healthy this year. They were both as healthy as they have been in the past half decade, and they got swept in the first round. So you can't count on that. And I don't think your third best player can be Austin Reeves and you can win an NBA championship. So this is where the Lakers, to me, are in a very stuck situation, and they're in a very awkward situation, which is what I think the Lakers realize, which is we have LeBron James on our roster. So by that token, we need to maximize every chance we get to go win an NBA championship. And by the second token, we don't have the resources to go get what we need to improve our bench, to improve our starting lineup, to become a legitimate championship contender. And we also, for the record, are going up against teams like Minnesota, who's only going to get better. Teams like Oklahoma City that are only going to get better. Denver is still in the mix. As long as the Clippers have Tyronn Lue, which we all know that was the Lakers' big mistake when LeBron first got there. They got rid of Luke Walton. And again, you know, I like Frank Vogel as a coach. You should have just offered Tyronn Lue a 5-year deal so he wouldn't have gone to the Clippers. I mean, it was the logical thing to do. We know the respect LeBron has for Ty Lue ever since he was with him in Cleveland. So, you know, who knows again if New Orleans is going to get better? You know, Memphis, if John Morant comes back and has a great season, that could be a possibility. So, there's all these teams in the West. And bottom line is, I don't think the Lakers are going to be a legitimate championship contender again. I think if they got by Denver, you know, if LeBron and AD were healthy, this is probably the year, again, with them being healthy throughout the entire regular season, which never happens again. But they're in a situation where they are a glamour brand, they are a big brand, but really for the past 15 years, outside of 1 or 2 seasons, they have not been relevant. They've fired coaches by the wayside, even though they have ed stars in the city, and they need sustainability. And you also have the Bronny James influence over your shoulder. So the Lakers are in a tough spot. You know, if Bronny James gets tried to buy another team somehow, will LeBron leave? And I don't think the Lakers know that. And we know the one thing about Dan Hurley is Dan Hurley's a barker. His entire family is filled with coaches that bark and yell. And we know in the college realm, we know this to be true in not only football, but basketball as well. You have total control of the roster. You are the star. In the NBA, that's not the case. Superstars, for lack of a better term, run the asylum. How will that go over with veterans like LeBron and AD, who did not respect Darvin Ham? And I do think, you know, right now, JJ Redick, because I think James Borrego's a retread. I think LeBron will walk all over him. I don't think he'd be the best coach for the future of this franchise. I think JJ Redick, who, you know, we've seen guys like Mark Jackson, who did have a little bit of coaching experience on the bench before he went to the broadcast booth to become the head coach of the Warriors. And then Steve Kerr, who did have some experience in the front office before going to the booth, before becoming the head coach of the Warriors and leading that dynasty. So we've seen instances where broadcasters can become head coaches and successful head coaches at that. We've never seen someone, you know, with limited either, you know, front office or coaching experience just go straight from the broadcast booth to uh the head coaching position. But I do think that JJ Redick is a young player. I think that matters with this generation, especially if you're the Lakers, thinking about a post LeBron future, which is we're gonna have a bunch of young guys. And, you know, I've seen it this season in baseball with my own Cleveland Guardians, right? We had a Hall of Fame manager in Terry Francona, but it did feel like during the past year, during his last year as manager, Francona was sort of starting to get out of touch with some of the very younger generational teams the Guardians slash Indians have brought in, you know, the talent wise the past few years. And it feels like Stephen Vogt, who's a former catcher, just got out of his playing days, can relate to the younger players, knows the trends in the game, knows modern baseball, is connecting better with these players. I sort of feel like JJ Redick as a young guy played against LeBron, has a ton of playoff experience, played under Coach K, also at Duke, by the way, so he's got that experience. We know how smart he is. He's a good broadcaster, not a great broadcaster. I'm not going to say I'm going to miss him completely if he were to move on from ESPN to the Lakers. But, you know, for JJ Redick to coach a team like Cleveland, I don't know, you know, or some of these other coaching that isn't, you know, really a superstar away. They need another piece. They need some development work. I don't know if JJ Redick would be the right fit for there, but being alongside LeBron and getting LeBron's endorsement, and I think JJ will have the ability as a former player to hold LeBron and AD accountable. I think they would listen to JJ. And so for that reason, I've sort of changed my tune where I think JJ Redick may be the right guy for the Lakers to hire. I don't think Dan Early was the perfect fit. I said that in my original recording when this was going to be, decision, wasn't made. Now, obviously, it's made. I think for Dan Early, who his wife is from the area where UConn's at, I think it's indeed the right decision. And we'll see which direction the Lakers go when it comes to their head coaching position.
Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.